to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. I am your host, Kelli Melissa Reinhart, and I go live every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time and Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And Wednesdays are specifically for Warrior Wednesdays. I bring guests who share their story, their experience, whatever they have been through in this thing that we call life, and really giving you, as the audience, that place to connect and identify. Maybe your story is similar, and really understanding that no matter what we go through, there is this place that we can get to called hope. And that's really the whole point of bringing my guests on Wednesday. And I am very excited, as with every show, for my guest this evening. But if this happens to be your first time watching and you are watching on YouTube, make sure you click down that little subscribe button. If you are watching on any of the streaming platforms like E360 TV, Roku, Apple, Fiverr, Amazon, whatever it is, make sure you add this show into your favorites, your want to watch later watch list. I don't even know what it's called. But add us into that so that you don't miss another episode, because I promise you, every single guest that I bring on, their story is just incredible and you don't want to miss it. So without further ado, I am going to bring my guest on for this evening. Alicia, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell the audience a little bit about your story and your journey.
So my kind of story, I guess, begins, especially with my healing journey. My spouse died by suicide on August 17th of 2022, which brings me to my new normal. I refer to the time before that as my old normal because it looks very, very different. Almost my life was flipped on its head that day when that took place. I battle with PTSD and depression, anxiety, all the things. And it was the worst day of my life, you know? So I've been trying to take that experience and do exactly this and be able to share it and try to bring awareness to suicide prevention and mental health and getting people to talk about mental health more. That is my goal at this time, at my mission for the foreseeable future. And I can tell you a little bit about that day or share my experience with it anyways.
Yeah, if you want to share, just, I know it has only been barely over a year. And so, yeah, as much as you want or feel comfortable sharing, I would love for you to.
And I like to start that story with, my wife and I, we were together for over 5 years. And, I really thought that we were going to be together forever, that she was the love of my life. And leading up to her passing, there were a lot of mental health things that took place that I started to recognize, which is really hard when you are so in love with somebody, to see these little nuggets of depression or whatever it is, mental health problems that their struggles that they're going through, because you want to do everything that you can to help them. And what I started to realize a few months before she took her life was that, and it was undiagnosed, but I was pretty sure she was suffering from borderline personality disorder. So she would hit these really, really high highs, and then she had these bouts of depression, her really low lows. And there were some other factors in there, taking ADD meds on top of that, as well as vaping every single day, marijuana and stuff, that kind of played a part into all of it, especially with the borderline personality disorder. There's actually been studies out there with how ADD meds affect those with borderline personality. So it was kind of the perfect storm if you will, with all of those things and just a lot of stressors in life, going to school, and she had started a new job. There was so much going on. But when I recognized that that's what was going on, um, I joined support groups. I was doing a lot of research to try to figure out the best way to help her with her mental health. And unfortunately, she got to such a low place that she just couldn't dig herself out, and I couldn't either. I was actually away for 2 weeks with the National Guard. I was in Wyoming. Those last couple days, I was able to come home and see her, and I had actually a lot going. Like we had some really good things that were happening at that time too. Like this National Guard trip was very symbolic in what was going to be happening in our future, things that we were planning. I had just finished my master's degree, and I was getting a new job. I was doing personal training. Like there was so many things that were on the up and up that were about to happen, and she just couldn't hold on for that last day. So that the morning of, it was just a normal morning, if you will. I got up really, really early because I had to drive up to Denver for the National Guard. And she got up to drink her coffee before work. One thing I think about a lot, and I'm so glad that I did, is I gave her one of the longest hugs, you know, in the kitchen, just one of the longest hugs. And I'm so glad I did. And I told her, just one more day, and then things are going to get better after this. So I drove to Denver like I normally do, and I text her when I got there, like I normally do. Said, I'm here, love you. She wrote back, love you. And I think it was about an hour later that I hadn't heard from her yet. She always texts me when she got to work, and I hadn't heard anything. So I text her and just to, follow up. And I didn't hear back. So I have cameras on my house. So I checked the camera and noticed that she left for work late. So I texted her again, was like, did you leave late? And then I contacted her work to see if she had showed up, and they said that she called out. And when I tried to call her, it went straight to voicemail. And I knew at that moment, because since the day that we met, we spoke from morning to night, whether I was deployed or I was on a contract somewhere in another state. Like, we spoke all day, every day. And I knew at that moment, and I went to my first sergeant and was like, this is what's happening. I need to go home. I need to figure out, because I know that she hadn't returned home. And I think it was about 5 minutes before I walked in the door that I broke down, because I knew what I was going to find. I knew I was going to find notes. I knew that I was going to, um, I have a firearm, and I knew it was going to be missing. So I called 911 immediately after I found those things. And within a couple of minutes, a sheriff was knocking on my door. And my thought was, wow, that was really fast, because I had just called 911. And he took my phone, he talked to the operator, and he came back in, told me to sit down. And that's when he informed me. And yeah, that just everything changed from there. One part of my story that a lot of people actually don't know, I don't ever get into, is that I've been sober actually for 3 years this month. And at that time, there was still alcohol in the house because my wife drank alcohol. And my first buddy from the National Guard, who arrived after the sheriff notified me, he asked me what he could do. And I said, get rid of all the alcohol, because I knew that that was going to be uh, a struggle. This is my MO in the past, of course, is well, not of course, but for me was to drink heavily, especially in moments like this, life-changing events. And I've still managed to stay clean and sober, actually have zero desire. And I'm so glad that I did, because I know what path that would have led me down. But the days leading, I mean, after that were it's quite fuzzy. So much changed. My entire life changed. Mentally, I'm a different person. Some people don't understand that, but I'm definitely a different person. It changed me. Experiencing something like this in good and bad ways. You know, they say it takes a lot of trauma to really have a lot of self-awareness into who you are and how you operate and what you need, and self-care and all of those things. And that's the up part of it, right? I guess. um, but you know, the mental fuzziness that still lingers, you know, my brain doesn't function like it used to, you know, and those are a lot of the frustrating times where I've had to learn a lot of compassion for myself. Um, and yeah, it's been a very difficult time, obviously. But I do therapy, you know, EMDR to be specific. Uh, One of the first things that I honestly did after, um, well, one, my request to all my friends and family, right, was to not be alone, because that's probably one of the scariest things, is just being alone after something like this. But after I knew that would go away eventually, like I had, my friends and family are amazing. My entire support system, they were there with me 24/7. They stayed the night for at least the first 3 weeks. Somebody was with me 24/7. And I'll always be thankful to all of those people. There were some times where I had like 8 and 10 people in my house just to be there with me, and as a support. But I got my dog. Um, I got a French bulldog. She's incredible. She's my psychiatric service dog. So I take her with me everywhere I go, and she's incredible. she she really is. She has helped me along in my healing journey, just being there. Um, yeah, that's the short version, I guess, of that entire thing.
Well, thank you. I mean, for sharing all of that. And I know um it's not the easiest to talk about, right? I know that you do because of what you do now, but definitely that first year, and you mentioned it too, it's like this fog. Like you still are probably somewhat in that fog a little bit, right? Maybe somewhat coming out of it. But I talk to a lot of people about, or when they're going through grief and loss, is this fog. And I know I personally, after my sister passed, was really in this fog of, and I think I'm still, I mean, I'm going on to 7 years and there's still points that I'm like, oh wow, right? Like I feel like
Yes.
I'm still coming out of it in a way. And I think that's just kind of a lot of the journey with grief and loss, but more specifically with a suicide, there's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And I think the question that kind of pops up into my head,
Mhm.
did I know you said that your wife had a lot of struggles with mental health challenges,
Mhm.
and I'm curious, had she ever attempted prior to this time?
She had not.
Okay.
No, she self-harmed at times. Um, but she had never attempted. And that's why it completely threw me for a loop. I definitely wasn't expecting it. I never thought that she would do it. It never crossed my mind, because we were connected. We were I never thought she would leave me like that. Or in any way leave each other. Um, yeah, so no, she had never attempted before. Um, what she also, like, she struggled with mental health, but she also struggled with some dependency on prescription meds. So specifically Ambien. She actually misused her Ambien and stuff every once in a while. So I think that was a huge factor in her taking her life. Was, I think that she was under the influence of Ambien, which, if you've ever seen somebody in an episode with Ambien, they have no idea what's happening, you know. And I've absolutely attributed it to her misusing her Ambien, and I don't think she actually meant to do it that day. I truly believe it was an accident, um, and that because she was under the influence of Ambien, she didn't know what she was doing.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much kind of that just popped up in my brain, and that goes into that because I mean, sleeping in general can, if you're not sleeping or sleeping too much, that can affect your mental health. But then also on top of that, because Ambien is generally, if I'm thinking of the right medication, is generally for sleeping.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can, I mean, if you are misusing it would like put you into this fog, right?
Mhm.
Like you're supposed to be sleeping, not awake
Yeah.
while using it. So,
Yeah. It's basically as if you blacked out on alcohol. It's just a lot faster. Because if you don't go to sleep right away, you're not there. You're not there at all. So I had seen her a couple of times, well, quite a few times when she misused it. She just wasn't herself and she wouldn't remember what she said or did later when she was in that stupor. So, yeah, it's a scary one, especially again when you mix it with the borderline personality and ADHD meds and just all the substance abuse that was taking place. Um, it may not surprise people, but at the same time, it's like I knew her. I know that she didn't mean to do it that day. Yeah.
yeah, it's it's such a hard, like, these conversations, right, are very, very important, but
Mhm.
also it's a hard conversation to have too because I call them the shoulda, coulda, woulda, hoodoo, voodoo, we do's. I That was my moments of like, well, I should have done this. I could have done that. Like,
Mhm.
what if this happened or what if this happened, right?
Yeah.
And I finally got to a place that I was like, I can't live in that space anymore. But there are also so many unanswered questions,
Yeah.
especially with suicides, that we will never fully have the answers, even if there are notes or things that were left, right? We
Yeah.
still, there's so many unanswered things. And I think the important part of what you just said is the mixture of all of these things.
Mhm.
And misusing, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally, it still happened.
Yeah.
And we have to think about like who are our loved ones that are around us that may be, um partaking is not the right word, but that's what's popping in my head,
Yeah.
partaking in these type of behaviors and or having these certain like, um gosh, my brain's like going into different places, but
Yeah.
um ultimately it comes down to how we can start to recognize what's going on. And it sounded like you did, and you guys were working through what was going on. The unfortunate part was that she ended up taking her own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, it's hard. It's something I'd absolutely talk to my therapist about, obviously, but um, when you are in love and connected with somebody, and even when you see those things, it may not occur to you in that moment how serious it is. And I know part of me not getting her help specifically is because she was not aware that these things were all issues. And I think that was the scariest part. And sometimes I do wish the whole coulda, woulda thing, that I had forced her to get help somehow. She wasn't the type of person that you could force to do those types of things. But if I could have somehow gotten her to recognize that all of these behaviors were a problem, which she didn't see at all, that maybe she would be here today, or maybe she wouldn't, because these mental health patterns had been a long time. She had childhood trauma and stuff, and um, one of my really good friends, after she took her life, a few days later, she kind of put a different perspective on it for me, and she said, if anything, you prolonged her life for 5 more years, um, because I did make her happy. We made each other happy. And I hadn't looked at it. When I looked at it like that, it doesn't make it any better, of course, right?
Right.
But I definitely tried to give her the best last 5 years of her life. Tried to do everything that I could, but at the end of the day, mental health won. And if I were to see those patterns again, I would definitely treat it differently. But it is important for people to know that, like, these are absolute concerns, and they need to be, awareness needs to be raised. Alcohol, I mean, she had a thing with alcohol and Ambien. She used to mix the two together sometimes, and it's like, sometimes I would kind of brush it aside and I would just take care of her in that moment. But thinking back, I realized that maybe I should have taken that a little bit more seriously, or gotten her help early on. Especially when I started to see the patterns of borderline personality disorder, and those really high highs and those really low lows, um, which I had tried. I did my best with it, but yeah, those patterns. A lot of people are going through those things, and if I hope that people can recognize them and get them the help that they need. Or if somebody is struggling, maybe this is a conversation where somebody recognizes that's a problem. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's scary for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and
yeah.
I think that and I say this too, is at least for me, it's really, really hard for the people that are closest to me. It has been always, even though I'm like in this space constantly, right? And I teach people how to recognize signs and symptoms, and I know them myself, but I still struggle with the people that are closest to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's about, or but I think it's a real thing. Like, you can start to notice these patterns. You can never force anybody to get help, which is frustrating, right? But we do the best that we can with the resources that we have, absolutely. And I think that's one of the main things is, you did the best that you could at those moments.
Right.
And I would love to, we're going to take a quick sponsored break, but when we get back, we're going to just talk a little bit more about that, and then also shift into what you're doing now, because I think what you're doing now in her memory and honor is incredible also. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsor break.
Hi, my name is Dr. Constance Leland from Level Up Circle TV, where I elevate the world through education, one learner at a time. Join me on Fresh Takes at 9 a.m. Thursday, Pacific Standard Time on E360 TV. Have a fantastic day. Bye.
And like that, we're back. If you are just now joining and you happen to be watching on YouTube, make sure you mash or click that subscribe button. If you're watching on any of the streaming platforms, please make sure you add us into your want to watch later list, watched list. I don't know what it's called, but whatever that list is, so that you don't miss another episode. Because I have incredible guests just like Alicia, and she is talking about her loss of her wife to suicide. And before we went to the break, we were starting to have that conversation about recognizing, or really starting to pay attention to, the people that are closest to you, and maybe not people that are closest to you, but ultimately, like, what are these like patterns that you're noticing, whether it is substance abuse, depression, anxiety, misuse of substances, and or just, I mean, general overall things that start to come up, that we're like really noticing those patterns. How can we help them in I wouldn't say a better way, but how can we support them to get the help that they need at that moment? Because as we were saying, you can't really force anybody to do anything that they don't want to, but we can, in a way, suggest for them to go get help. And what does that look like, right? So, um, I would love to have you just kind of share. I mean, I know that again, it has only been just a little bit over a year, but I don't know, like, I know you go to, well, I guess I should transition a little bit because I would love for you to share like what you're doing now.
Mhm.
And then my question will probably be relevant after that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to talk about my healing journey, like from the start, and the things that I have done to kind of help with all of this. Um, oh, uh, Obviously, I talked about my psychiatric service dog, who's been absolutely incredible. One of the things that I did not anticipate early on in this loss, when people like lose a spouse, was I fell in love again very early on. Wasn't expecting it. It happened out of the blue, and I was kind of like my own devil's advocate in that situation, but this is also my healing journey, and there's, society wants to tell you like something's too early or something's too late when there's really no time frame on anything. And she's been absolutely incredible and very supportive throughout my entire healing journey, which has been absolutely wild in itself. Um, so I do have a person in my life now that has been able to help me also kind of love myself again. That's been it's been a struggle, obviously. The my best friend, my life partner, who I was supposed to be with forever, took their life, without thinking about me, so it was very, very hard to even imagine falling in love again after that. um, and and yeah, she's been absolutely incredible. um, I was doing personal training at the time also. Like, that's been a huge passion of mine for a long time, as you know, from seeing it at the health and fitness event. um, I've been doing that for a long time, and that was part of my healing journey as well, like just helping other people through health and fitness. I've always loved it. I love helping people with that. And I think it was about March timeframe at the beginning of this year. I just I don't know what it was, and sometimes, especially throughout my healing journey, I've noticed like things just kind of happen, or thoughts happen, or something pulls you in a direction. And you may not understand it, and that's okay. I just learned when my body pulls me in a certain direction, I kind of go with it, because that's just what I'm feeling at the time. And I think it was about March, and that's when I started coming up with the idea for Live, um, with the semicolon, of course, in there. And I started kind of bouncing around ideas and just, of course, researching to make sure it wasn't out there. And the first thing I did was like look up the trademarking process, and I trademarked it immediately. My goal at the start, which still continues, again, is part of my mission, is just to bring awareness to suicide prevention, and getting people to talk more. And I don't think I was ready for the amount of support that I've had throughout creating this brand. Because every event that I've done, every single person that I've talked to, I've made a connection with, you know. And sometimes it's just it's very powerful, basically, for my healing journey. It's a lot, talking about suicide. It's very heavy. It's obviously a very heavy topic. Um, but I have noticed how much it has helped people. Just taking the 2 minutes at an event, somebody passing by and just seeing this and telling me their story, and I share with their story, and we have that connection. It's incredibly powerful. But I started I never thought I'd know so much about screen printing and stuff, sublimation, but I started with the t-shirts, of course, and just doing the live big and bold. And one thing that I wanted to um, kind of create was something not hidden. I've noticed sometimes the semicolon for suicide prevention awareness is very hidden, or um, there's a lot happening around it. And I was like, no, I need this to be like front and center. Like, there's no confusion what this is about. This is suicide awareness. I want the semicolon front and center, and I wanted it simple. And that's what I came up with. I started screen printing t-shirts and started selling them in April. And then it just started expanding from there. Right. So I started making coffee mugs, and now I've got keychains, and I'm working on Christmas ornaments and all the things. And of course, a portion of my proceeds goes to Pikes Peak Suicide Prevention Partnership. And I've been able to raise over $2,000 since April for them. So that's exciting. And I'm so happy to help them out because they're absolutely amazing. The free programs that they offer to not just adults, but youth, all the youth programs that they offer, teen programs and everything. They're an absolutely incredible group, and I'm so happy to support them. But yeah, I'm just expanding. I actually stopped personal training because I had this knack of working on multiple projects at one time, and I felt like it's time to just focus on one. So, um, so I've decided to go just take this head on and try to get it to grow and get out there more, try to speak more, just to get people talking about suicide and mental health, which I've actually seen some changes, minor changes here and there, but I have noticed them that there has been a little bit more effort in the public to talk about mental health more. I think I went to a Switchbacks game, and they were talking about 988 and mental health, and if you need help, and I thought that was great. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I'm just hoping to get big enough to have the brand just kind of front and center. I want people to see it. I want people to, you know, and I want to inspire people, whether it is somebody who is struggling at that moment, or somebody who can relate because they've lost somebody to suicide, or just letting them know that they're not alone and it doesn't have to be a taboo topic, which it very much still is. And I think that there's been minor strides made, but it's still very taboo. And kind of just squashing that and getting people to just talk, speak up. It's okay to say that you're hurting. It's okay to say that you're having these thoughts, and making sure that we have those resources available for them. So that's what I've been doing.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that you had gotten out of the fitness section and now you're just doing
Yeah.
live. That's awesome.
I have always had multiple projects, whether I was doing military contracting, going to school. I went to school for 7 years, and then I finished my master's, and then all of this took place. And, I had fully intended on just taking personal training head on. And then I started on this project, and it has been so helpful for my healing journey. That I just need to do it full time, so, and it's been really great. Like I said, no matter how big or small the event that I've participated in, there's at least one connection every time where I have a moment with somebody, a complete stranger, and you can feel the power in it.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, we have my Love Life shirts.
Yes.
And then our warrior shirts, and I always have somebody, they're like, you spelled warrior wrong. And I was like, no, there's supposed to be a semicolon in there. And they're like, oh, okay. So
and I've noticed that I almost appreciate it more when people ask about the semicolon, because every event that I do, people ask. Or they ask, is it live or is it love? And I'm like, I have to explain it to them a little bit. But every event that I've done too, people ask what the semicolon is, and I'm happy to explain it, and they get it. And yeah.
Yeah, I love also what popped into my head as you were saying that is especially as you talk through your healing journey, and I know you have a new partner and you like live, right? Like it's all about you're still alive and you have to live your life also.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what popped into my head, like the story with the semicolon,
Mhm.
that can be something that you can explain, but also being able to live your life how you want to,
Yeah.
and not according to what society says or other people say, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something important for people to realize, is that we all process grief and loss differently. We all have our own experiences. Like my experience is not going to be the same as yours and vice versa. And we all, sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's shorter, and sometimes it becomes this journey that we never thought that we would take, but such a rewarding journey. Or maybe there's the alternative, like you were talking about, and congratulations on being sober for 3 years. I think
Thank
that's just incredible. And that's the journey that you have chosen and that you have stayed, even though all this trauma and all this stuff happened. It's still something that you choose to um be sober, and like not revert back to negative coping mechanisms, if that's what you want to call them.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think it's so important for people to understand that it is your healing journey. And one of the things that I've had to learn how to do is to also like remove things from my life, not just accept new patterns or self-care and all the things, but remove like toxic people from my life. Like it's okay to do that for your own mental health and for your own healing, you know. Again, when I say that I'm a different person, in my new normal, I am a different person. That self-awareness that I have now are the things that I need spiritually or as an individual um, to aid in my mental health, and not, you know, um, not not, I don't want to say destroy. I don't know if the right word, but to help my own mental health. I have so much self-awareness now involved in that. And it's all of it's very powerful. All of the things that we choose to do, like alcohol, I don't miss. And it's almost like it was easy to not drink because of what I knew it would happen. So it is something that I've absolutely chosen. And there's been a couple times in my life where I have quit drinking for spouts of time, and then I end up going back. But there's zero desire to bring that back into my life. To bring that negative place back into my mental health is not going to be beneficial whatsoever. Not just for me, the people around me. So, and I know that, but I do have the control to stay sober and not introduce something like that back in. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that, because I don't think I've really talked about it personally either, as like the before me and the now me, right? I know very much that I am a much different person before my sister passed and then now.
yeah.
And it has been a lot of, I mean, really deep diving into the mental health and suicide prevention world, obviously, but there's so many people that I know that have had a loss to suicide,
Mhm.
that, and other reasons, but I've heard them say, I just want to get back to my old self.
Mhm.
And I think in a way that can be a destructive way of thinking, because I don't know if that person still exists, at least for myself. Of course, I can only talk for myself. I can't talk for anybody else, but I don't think that person exists anymore.
Mhm.
There's pieces of it,
Yep.
but I also don't know if I necessarily want to go back to that person, right? Like, I do like the person that I am now with all this wealth of knowledge and things that I have learned over time, and that self awareness, like you were talking about, right? Like, it's a very different place to live and come from. And it's okay, at least for me, to not go back to that person who I was. But I think that is kind of a shared experience with those that have lost
Mm.
somebody, specifically even to suicide, or maybe just in general.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I noticed uh, early on. And I don't know if it's just how I am, how I operate normally, but when I found out that my wife died by suicide, I almost hit acceptance really early. Like, because I'm a very logical, analytical thinker. So once I found out that information, it was kind of like, this is my life now, like this is part of who I am. And unfortunately, that is part of who I am. Part of who I am now is that my wife died by suicide, you know. But I accepted it early on. And just like you said, and that's exactly how I explain it to people, there are certain elements of myself that still exist from before. Um, but there's a lot of new things, and I don't think I'd necessarily want to go back to who I used to be. I like who I am now. The things that I'm doing now. This is definitely a realm I never thought that I'd be in. I'd never imagined being here. I never would have thought I would be in this position, but I am so glad that I am. And this is like part of my purpose now. I feel a part of my mission is to be in this realm and getting people to talk about mental health and suicide. And I never thought that I'd be there. And I love what I'm doing. Again, I love all the connections that I've made with people. Um, yeah, it's interesting, and I've actually heard people say that as well. Like, I wish I had my old self back. And there's certain things, like, as you know, the fogginess and brain function, my short term memory, all of those things. But that's where I've had to learn compassion for myself, and that's huge. That's been that's been major throughout this entire process, is having compassion for myself, because I've always been hard on myself, a perfectionist and all of these things, from my own childhood trauma. But having compassion for myself, and there are I have bad days and I have good days, right? I think we've all experienced having, really, really down days and good days, and that's normal. But I've learned to give myself compassion for those days where I just, like, I can't do it. Like, I cannot function. I can't get a clear thought across. I have those days, and I just have to kind of sit back and allow it to happen, and just know, if what I need that day is to lay down on the couch and not do anything, then that's what I'm going to do, because my body and my mind are telling me that's what I need in that moment. And then I have my high energy days that I take advantage of. But compassion is huge, when you're grieving and healing. And people don't want to cry sometimes, and it's like, no, just cry. Just let it go. It's fine. I've had people come up to my booth sometimes, and I had a woman come up to my booth, and she started crying before saying anything. So I knew something was fresh. So I let her cry it out. And then she told me, she was like, my dad just took his life, like, I think 2 months prior to this. And of course, I was like, can I give you a hug? Because I've become a hugger, especially in these situations. And I gave her a big hug. And yeah, just compassion. Cry. It's okay to cry. You're allowed to do that. I've cried in the store, I've cried in my car, I've cried, and it's unexpected sometimes, the littlest things, but allow it to happen. That's
Yeah.
okay.
It's huge though. Like, I was not a crier, like, literally before. Like, I hated showing emotion to people, like, honestly.
Yeah.
And because I thought that it made me kind of weak, right?
Yeah.
And so I have given myself a lot of grace. I call it grace for me. I love the word compassion too. I have to give myself grace, and I tell people this all the time, is it's a journey, right? You have your highs, you have your lows. There's going to be moments that, like you just said, you're not going to function. There's going to be moments that I can talk about my sister till, I'm blue in the face. And then there's other moments, the drop of her name or just thinking about it makes me want to cry. And I had a friend whom had lost her daughter and husband, and she said something to me that I hold on to this day, and it's that you never get over it. It never gets easier, but you do learn how to grow forward.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me because it allowed that space to open for celebration also. And that's something I like to tell people, is you don't always have to be sad. It doesn't always have to be hard to experience life as you move forward. You
Yeah.
can open up those spaces to now celebrate their life or celebrate your own life, right? And live your life
Yeah.
to what it needs to be. So
Yeah.
I just think what you are doing is incredible. Sharing your story and going to all of these events that you showcase all your shirts and all the swag and everything that you have. And it's simple. It's very
Yeah.
simple. And it starts a conversation. And I know that you also wanted to share about a book.
Yes. So there's going to be a book coming out. It's an anthology, which means that there's multiple authors in it, and they're all telling their stories. It's a trauma to triumph book called "The Hands They Were Dealt," and it's written by authors, but it's by Mandy Penn. She's a photographer here in Colorado Springs, and the elements or the chapters themselves have a illustration that go along with each person's chapter, their unique story, that's very powerful. So yeah, it's supposed to be released in January. I'm hoping that's still happening, but hopefully early next year is when this book is going to get released. So I'm really excited about that. And also, I'm actually going to be in Chapel Hills Mall in Colorado Springs with all my stuff, my shirts and everything. So starting November 22nd throughout the holidays. So that should be huge. I'm excited for those conversations as well. And the holidays are usually really hard for people that have suffered these losses. So yeah, those are two huge things. So the hands they were dealt. Can't wait.
That's awesome. And I know we're also coming up to International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day,
Yes.
which is this weekend. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I know there's lots of uh, events that will be happening around everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
well, let everybody know if they want to reach out to you, find your shirts and all your stuff, where can they do that?
Yes. So my website is choosetolive.org. You can find all my stuff there. Yeah. You can find all my stuff there. And then I have a page of resources as well for suicide prevention, both in Colorado as well as nationally, different resources that you can go to. I'm on Facebook, of course. If you search live with the semicolon, I will pop up immediately on there. I am on TikTok. It's Alicia's Healing Journey on TikTok, Instagram as well. So yeah, those are all the places you can find me. Oh,
Awesome.
I'm also on Amazon.
Ooh,
Yeah, I have
nice.
some stuff on Amazon as well. So choose to live on Amazon.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to chat more anyways. I know we talked because I don't do my own shirts, and
Oh,
I have bonfire do it. So I should support somebody that knows how to do it instead of, a corporation.
Like I said, I didn't think I would know so much about screen printing, sublimation shirts. I do laser engraving now. So all my ornaments, they're all wooden, laser engraved. I designed myself, and I never thought I would know so much about this stuff. So yes,
Yeah.
I will help support you in any way I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being my guest this evening. And I appreciate everything that you do, and being able to come on and share your story. And I know that you were nervous at first, but I promise you, it's really easy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. As a reminder, I go live every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time and on Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Mondays, I bring on professionals, advocates of mental health, or those with lived experience to really share what they do specifically in their business. It is the resource time. So I'm bringing you resources, people resources, because as we know, in the mental health and substance use and suicide prevention space, there is never enough resources, but I promise you they are out there, just sometimes we don't know about them. And then on Wednesdays, I have warriors that come in and share their story about whatever they have been through in this thing that we call life, and really into that place of hope. So as a reminder, BCC Evolution is a 501c3 nonprofit. That is my mental health and suicide awareness nonprofit. If you need more resources, I know Alicia said she has some on her website, so make sure you go check that out. We also have a trusted resource hub on our website with lots and lots and lots of resources, and we're making new connections all the time. And if you want to support BCC Evolution, go become a warrior for mental health with only $19 or more per month. That goes to all of our programs, which include awareness conversation, which we're doing here, and education, which is key. No matter what you do, make sure you come back and join me next Monday. I'm like, what is today? Yeah, my brain is like, blah. Join me next Monday because I have another incredible guest. So I'll see you then.